Hi, Brianna, and thank you so much for joining me for today's podcast interview. And I have been an attendant of one of your programs as well, like so many others, and I really love what you are sharing. So I'm like really happy to have you here today. And yeah, for those who don't know you yet, would you like to tell us a bit more about yourself first?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much, first of all, for having me here today. I'm so excited to talk more together. I've loved having you inside of my programs. You're such a bright light, and I know that we're going to talk about a lot of magical things today. So I'm really pumped to be here to share my light and my work as well. And for anyone that doesn't know who I am, my name is Brianna Rose, and I essentially am a Kundalini business coach. And what I do is I help women to rise into their power and use their businesses as an opportunity to raise the vibration of the planet. But the way I do that is very unique. We don't just look at your business as a strategy, we're looking at your business through the lens of energy. And through my methods that I've created, what we do first and foremost is unlocking your energy system using light leader Kundalini. And from this deep, connected, aligned place is when then we start to transition into how does my business need to look like? What do I actually want to create? What fits into my lifestyle? What kind of leader do I want to be? And so on. And this really allows people to make the impact that they crave while also making the income. And it truly lights me up every single day. I love doing this work. I love helping people that have such beautiful gifts that might not know how to transition that into impact and making money as well. So I love to help the people that are doing good stuff in the world, because I believe that together, that's how we'll create a legacy of light, and that's how we'll be able to heal generations, to come, and really make this generational impact that I think that the world is desiring right now.
Yeah, I love the way that you are really not about just the strategy, but also about the
Mm.
energy, because I think it's so important. And I think you have been so far, only two of the coaches I have been working with who actually understand this.
Mm.
And I think that's also why I felt so connected with you, because before I was always like, there's something missing.
Yes.
And then when I got to know you and another coach before, I was like, wow, yeah, that totally makes sense.
Mm.
So why do you think energy is so important, like the energy work in our life? Why is it so important?
Great question. For me, I'm all about experiencing it yourself, right? And I think we can tell people like energy work is so important. Energy work is going to make you grow and scale your business. But if you don't feel it yourself in your body, it's not going to work, right? Like you can't read about this stuff in a textbook. You have to be able to experience it. Same thing with Kundalini, right? You can just learn about it, but it's until you can feel it in your body that you're like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. Oh, my body recognizes this. Oh, my ancient wisdom is kind of being, unearthed from within. And I think it's so important. The energy piece is because you want to feel good in your life and in your business. I think so many times that we are trained to think that in order to be successful, that there's this other part of us that has to dwindle or die out, or we have to be burnt out and we have to be stressed out in order to be successful, right? It's like we can't be successful and happy. We have to be successful and miserable. But when you really start to understand the energetic components of success and business building, it allows you to feel good, allows you to feel good in your body, in your business. And that energy piece is so vital, because if you're vibrating from a lower energetic place, right? If you're stressed out, if you're burnt out, that's literally the frequency that you're emitting out into the world. So that's what you're going to see back to you, right? And that's why so many times the easiest way I can describe it is oftentimes when you're having a bad day, it just gets worse, right? You're like, first you like forget your phone at home, and then like you blow out your tire, and then this happens, and then that happens. All of a sudden, it's like the worst day of your life, and it's because you were stuck in that vibration, right? You were just attracting in what it is that you are. And I think for business owners, why this is so important to speak about this is because you might want success, you might want to have the multiple 6-figure, 7-figure, 8-figure business, whatever it is. But you're not going to get there no matter how much strategy you put out if you're not in the embodiment of your own energy. If you're not in that vibration, you're going to still get in those clients that don't pay, or you're going to get in the clients that have the money stories and they're not going to enroll into your programs, or you might get the money in, but you'll attract in the team that doesn't work. You're going to attract in the team that doesn't facilitate the type of space and support that you need to rise up into that next level. So our energy is constantly calling in and attracting in what we want, or maybe even what we don't want, because it's what I like to think of it as: the universe, spirit, whatever you want to call it, is constantly responding to us. It's constantly saying yes. So if you're saying like, oh my God, I'm so miserable. Oh my God, I'm so anxious. Oh my God, this launch is going to suck. I'm so scared. The universe is like, yep. But if you change that vibration, you're like, oh my God, I'm going to book out my program. Oh my God, I'm going to be the CEO of my life, and I'm going to be happy, and I'm going to work only 4 hours a day. Right? The universe is like, sure, right? It's all about the belief system and the energy that you're carrying. So it's kind of sobering to think about, but everything that's happening in your life is because of you, right? If we can really think about it, it's like, oh, that's a little tough to think about, but you've created the experience that you're living in, and you can also change that. That's how powerful we actually are.
Yeah, I love everything you said. And it's like when you said the energy, it really shifts how maybe successful a launch is, or how you feel, and whether you are successful, but you might still feel empty inside. And that's basically how I felt a couple of years ago. I achieved everything I could achieve at the place I was working. I was a retoucher, so I had publications in all the magazines. I worked with like really top brands, and I was still like, but I still was like feeling totally empty, and then I felt miserable, and then it just went worse and worse and worse until one day I was crying in my bedroom. And that basically was the moment where I started to like integrate yoga and meditation, and later on Kundalini, and I noticed how much it changed. So that's why I really love talking to you about this topic. So how did you actually came into this? Was it always part of your life, or was it something you integrated when you started your business?
Great question. My story is very similar to you. Long story short is I've always been very connected to the spirit world. Ever since I was a little kid, I could see spirit, see auras. I would have dream visitations. Like my earliest memory of this is when I was like 3 years old. And it scared me because I didn't know what it was. It was a different time back then. There's no Google. I couldn't figure it out. And my parents were awesome. They really tried to foster me and make me feel safe and secure with what was happening, but I hated it. And every single night I would pray for it to go away. I was like, I don't want to see these people, like make it go away. I just want to go to sleep. And I did that for like my whole life. And very similar to you was when I graduated from college, I got a job in PR marketing. My degree is in advertising, marketing, communications. I quickly like rose up through the ranks from coordinator to director. And I was 23 years old and I was making a lot of money. I had like all the things that you were supposed to have. I had my car, I had paid off all my student loans, like everything was good, but I felt miserable inside. And I was like, this is, how am I going to do this until my 60s? Like, I'm supposed to feel this way until I'm in my 60s and retired. This doesn't make sense. And around that time, one of my very close friends had passed away. And that had just kind of cracked me open. It was like everything that I had prayed to, like all my gifts to shut down, they open up tenfold. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, like everything around me, I could see the energy, I could feel the vibrations. It was really scary and a really interesting time, but it led me to where I am today. And because of that, I started to look into Reiki, because I think Reiki is like a gateway for so many people. And I was like, oh, I'm going to learn about Reiki. The company that I was working for, they had recently hired acupuncturists and like Reiki practitioners. So I would like leave my corporate desk and I would go run into their offices. And I was like, tell me about what it is that you do. I have been seeing spirit my whole life. I don't know who to talk to about this. And they would start like treating me. And then all of a sudden I became certified in Reiki. And then all the teachers started showing up, right? Like the second I started to like delve into that world, the teachers started showing up. I started to learn more. I was like a junkie on energy stuff. Like I spent so much time with my oracle cards and my crystals and my pendulums and everything. And there was a moment where I was like, oh, this is what my soul actually needs. And I was going into work and I was like, this feels miserable. Like I just like, I can't even do it anymore. And I remember thinking, I was like, I could get paid $1 million a year and I still wouldn't want to be doing this. Like, it just didn't feel right. And I kept thinking to myself, I was like, the reason why this doesn't feel right is not because I don't like the work that I'm doing. I've always loved marketing and business building, but I wanted to help more people. I knew that I wasn't meant to be like one person at one company just helping this. Like I knew that I was meant to help more people. So I took a leap of faith and I quit that job, my 9 to 5. I didn't have any plans. I literally had a dream visitation. And in my dream, I just got a message and they were like, you're either going to hop on the train or you're going to get off. Like now's the time, you're going to miss it. You're going to miss it. And I remember I woke up from that dream and I was like, okay, I'm supposed to leave. Like it was so powerful. So I left and my life shifted after that. And that's when I started to really dive into how do I blend business with energy? Because I loved both of them and I needed to figure out how to create that fusion. So it took me some time for sure. I had to really sit with it and study it. But once I started to make those connections, it made not only so much sense to me, but to my clients and my students, because what I was noticing was I could give someone a strategy, but again, if their energy wasn't there, the strategy didn't work. And I remember when I worked in corporate, I'd see that, but they'd always say like, all right, we need to do more SWOT analyses. We need to do more market research. We need to do this. We need to do that. And it still sometimes wouldn't work, right? And I remember always thinking like, why isn't it working? We're doing everything right, but this person's ad campaign isn't working, or this person's branding campaign isn't working. So when I started to think about the energy and learning more about that, I had my big aha moment. I was like, oh, the energetic component was missing. So when I started to bring that in with my own personal clients, I started to see rapid results when we brought in the energy pieces first and we looked at the business and themselves through the lens of energy. It's like you all of a sudden could see the pattern. You could see why it wasn't working. You could see what the person was struggling with. You could see the limiting belief that would pop up when they were about to launch the business or whatever it might be. And we're like, oh, those are the areas to tackle. Let's go heal that and then try the strategy again. And when we started to look at business that way, the energy can flow, right? The energy can move. You can show up more confident, more powerful, more in your just like, you're like the master of your domain. The business naturally is an extension of that, and it's going to reflect back to you your current energetic presence. So I had a lot of fun discovering that and playing with that throughout the years and getting me to where I am today.
So if there's a person who might be in a similar situation like we used to be and who might be afraid of diving into something new, is there anything you would like to tell them so they are not that scared to actually like just take the leap?
Yeah. Well, first, it's always going to be scary, right? It's like when we take the leap, it's going to scare the crap out of you. But oftentimes the things that scare you the most are exactly where you need to be. Our ego likes to stay safe. It likes to have a routine. So anytime you want to do something a little different, it's going to try to bring you in check and be like, that's really scary. I don't know if that's safe. I don't know if you should do that, because the ego is so used to like that primal part of us that had to run away from tigers and bears, like when we were like, thousands upon thousands of years ago. So it still thinks that that's happening. It doesn't realize that you're safe. It doesn't realize that you don't have a tiger chasing after you. So we have to really sit with that and get to know our bodies and start to decipher what is the intuition and what is the ego. So for people that are scared, awesome. That means that you're starting to think about a new way of being or doing that is going to reprogram your entire thought process, your energy, and it's probably a pivotal moment in your life. Like this is going to be that jump off point, which is so awesome. And I think the biggest thing that I can drive home is you cannot try to make sense of the intuition. oftentimes the intuition does not make any sense. It's not going to be logical. And I think so many times we're like, oh, but it just like, it doesn't make sense, this idea that I have, or this thing that I want to do. The intuition doesn't speak that way. That's how the mind speaks. That's how the ego speaks, but the intuition doesn't. So the more afraid that you are, the more that it kind of doesn't make sense. If it's something that you've never even heard of before, take a little leap of faith. It doesn't mean you have to like, leave your 9 to 5 tomorrow, like how I did, right? But maybe it's just a little step in the right direction. And all of those little steps, they eventually add up to big positive change.
Yeah, I love what you said. It's even it even reminded me of some times where I, for example, wanted to launch something in a certain strategy I was taught, and inside it made me feel like, oh no, this doesn't feel right. So obviously the outcome was not really good.
Yeah, totally.
And now even when I actually decided to, hey, come on, hey, I have my company, but I want to go back into coaching. And I was like, yeah, obviously I'm going to talk a lot about marketing and business. And it was still like kind of hiding the spiritual side of me. And because I was like, yeah, but maybe people will think I'm weird. And then when I started to just accept it, and I was like starting to, hey, whatever, I will attract the right people, suddenly it shifted a lot. And just within like the last few months, I got so many people asking me, inviting me for interviews. I became a magazine editor, and additionally, so that's super cool. And I think if we really try to like not push the anxiety we have away, but really just go into it, I think it's so amazing, and it really, really impacts our life in such a positive way.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. High five to you for all the amazingness that's coming into your life. I think, what I'm hearing from you and what I've heard from myself and so many of our students is we're not taught self-trust, right? Like we're taught to like listen to the teacher, to listen to the parent. And that's great when we're little kids, right? Like we have to learn from our parents and our teachers. But when we become adults, we have to learn how to tap into our own sovereignty. We have to learn how to trust our inner voice, because that inner voice is the one that's connected to source. It's the one that knows better than our mind could ever even fathom. And when we start to trust that, it creates monumental shifts in our life and in our business. And it doesn't mean that all of a sudden tomorrow you're going to be like totally tapped in, tuned in, this intuitive goddess. You'll get there, but it just starts with those little things. Like you said, like when I launch, or when I've launched in ways that didn't feel right, they didn't work. But the second I started to lean into myself and I trusted myself, the opportunities show up. And it's because your energy was in a place of expansion, right? When we're doing things that don't feel right, but they might make sense, or like some guru told us, or a teacher, our energy actually constricts, right? Because we're like, oh, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel like me. So if your energy is constricting, how can it expand out and reach your soulmate clients or reach out the opportunities that you desire? It's not going to. When you're fully in your flow and trusting yourself, you're just that walking, talking beam of light, and the energy opens up, which means the doorways open up, and all of a sudden all the people start to flow in, and the abundant opportunities. So you are a prime example of that happening.
So I know many people, even in my surroundings, when I'm like, hey, I just listen to my intuition and it tells me this and I do that, and they are like, yeah, but intuition, what does it even mean? And I have never even had a voice or a feeling. How do you get this? So I know there are many who are not really tuned in the intuition, or who just maybe even hear or feel something, but they just want to shut it off. So what is your favorite tip for those people who are like, oh no, there's some voice. Yeah. No, I better not listen. That's weird. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And there's a lot of people out there like that don't feel like they have an intuition, or they're afraid to hear some voice or spirit speak through them. And I think the first thing to recognize and know is our intuition is nothing outside of ourselves. It's not like a angel or an ascended master or a ghost or anything like that. It's the voice of us. Like it's the part of us that knows our life's mission, knows our life's purpose. It's like that higher intelligence part of us that we have been just taught to shut down. So when we start to think of it, we're like, oh, it's just me trying to talk to myself, kind of makes it not as scary. If you're someone that hasn't had an experience where you might have felt your intuition, or that you know what your intuition is, I always guide people. I'm like, what about, like, have you ever had those moments where you pull into a parking lot and you're like, like, I wish there was like a front row spot. Like, I hope there's a front row spot. And then you pull up and someone's pulling out of the front row spot, and then you pull in. Or if you're thinking about your friends and you're like, I should really call him or her, and all of a sudden they text you and they call you, right? That's actually your intuition, right? We don't normally correlate that to your intuition. That's like the voice of your intuition. Like, your voice of your intuition doesn't have to be like, hey, Lisa, here's this awesome idea, go after it. It gets there, right? When we start to talk to it more, we have more of a conversation. But this is a relationship. So when you first meet someone, you're not like talking about everything in your life and going into these deep details, and right, you don't. Same thing with your intuition. Your intuition isn't going to speak to you in that way. It's going to give you these little signs, these little notions. So for anyone that feels like they don't have an intuition, we actually all do. And it speaks to us in different ways. So like I said, start thinking about those moments where you're like, I can't believe that just happened. I can't believe that I got that front row spot. Oh my God, I can't believe I won that contest. Oh my God, I was just thinking about my friend and then they texted me. That's actually your intuition speaking, because everything is energy. So we're constantly picking up on those energetic frequencies. So that's one part. Second part is when you can start to decipher between your ego and your intuition. I like to think of it as, or what I guide people to do when they're starting to just learn this is, when you're sitting with your body, you can put your hand on like your chest or your stomach, or you can just simply sit there. But think about something that really excites you. Like, think about something that you love, right? And just notice how your body feels. Or think about those moments when you thought about your friend and then she called you or texted you. Like, just think about how, like, in alignment that might have felt, or excited that might have felt, or blissful that might have felt, or connected that might have felt. And just notice that sensation that you feel in your body. After you've done that, now think about something that scares the crap out of you, like something that like really intimidates you, that feels really scary and fearful, something that's negative. Notice how that feels in your body. So the reason why I'm telling you to feel into your body is because the ego lives in the mind, it does not live in the body. The body is fueled by our intuition. So when we start to learn how our body wants to speak to us, we can start to decipher between what's real and what's not real. And again, our intuition might be that booming voice. It could be that part of us that just feels something, right? When you say like, oh, I felt it in my gut, I just knew, that's actually your intuition. That's your intuition speaking to you. So I would advise anyone to do that type of exercise where you think about something that just feels super blissful and expansive, and then think about something negative. Not that we want you to be thinking about that, but we just have to have the polarity to really feel into what is intuition, what is happiness, what is joy, and what is ego, and what is fear. So that way you can start to just decipher that in your body. And sometimes, most of the time, when we are anxious about something, or where we think we're in fear, it's actually excitement in disguise. I do feel like they're the same thing, but we've been just trained so much to be afraid of our own power and afraid of our own intuition and who we actually are. So when we can start to just decipher the feeling in our body, it allows us to create a deeper connection with ourselves and our soul.
So you also mentioned Kundalini at the beginning, and
Yes.
I'm a big fan myself. So it's also a huge part when it comes to energy and the ego and intuition. So would you like those who might not be that familiar, because I know so far, at least, Kundalini isn't that popular, unfortunately. What is it that you love so much about Kundalini, and what is it? Because I know those who might have heard of it will be like, oh my God, Kundalini, I heard it's dangerous.
Yes. Oh, I'm so happy you brought this up. I love Kundalini. I've been studying it for almost a decade now. So I've spent a lot of time discovering this energy and what it is. And I first discovered it when I was very much, in my 9 to 5 and my go, go, go marketer mode. And I remember when I first discovered it, it was intimidating. It was really scary. I thought I was walking into a regular vinyasa yoga class, and instead I walked into a Kundalini yoga class, people in turbans and dressed in all white and chanting and doing these weird poses. And I was just on like the brink of my spiritual awakening. So it scared me. And I was like, what is this? But I stayed and I took the class. And that was a specific day where I had felt so depressed and fearful. Like I just couldn't get out of the rut no matter what I did. Like I just could not get out of it. And I remember I took the class, and even though throughout the entire class I was like, this is so weird, why am I chanting this thing, why am I moving my arm this way, which I think so many of us feel when we practice Kundalini. After that 90 minutes, I think it was a 90-minute class, I could feel myself again. It's like the cloud, the dark cloud that was like over my head had shifted, and I could think clearly. And it didn't last forever, of course, but it lasted enough time where I could make that recognition of something had shifted. Didn't know what happened, but something happened. And I just needed that moment of just clarity and happiness to say to myself, okay, you need to figure out what it was that you just did and learn more. And that kind of just led me down the rabbit hole of Kundalini. I was first introduced to Kundalini yoga meditation as taught by Yogi Bhajan. And that's what I had studied originally, like I think so many people, because it's so prevalent, just in the West. And I had practiced it, but what I started to notice was there was this, like, again, intuition, higher power, whatever you want to call it, that was speaking through me, that was like, this, you're on the right path, but there's actually more to this. And I was like, interesting. So I spent a lot of time studying what Kundalini was beyond the yoga and the meditation that's so prevalently taught. And I started to just learn what the energy was at its core. I started to play with the Kriyas, and I'll talk about what they are in a moment. I started to play with them. I was basically my own science experiment. And I have journals of me from that time of my life, going through all the Kriyas, playing with them, modifying them, understanding how they're working in my body. And the reason why I did this, because when I taught it, when I was practicing it originally, how it was taught, it was making me sick on a certain level. Some Kriyas made me sick. And I was like, some of them work, some of them are not working. Why? Like, I'm always a big person on like curiosity and learning. So like, why is this happening? And then when you Google Kundalini, there's a lot of bad stuff that comes up about it being dangerous, about you losing your mind. So I was like, why can that happen? And so again, I went back down into like, the rabbit hole, and I just studied it for so long, and experiencing it. And like I said, you can't just read about it. You have to experience it yourself. And then once I kind of came out of that, I started to learn about Chinese medicine. And this is what really was a pivotal moment in my Kundalini career, which was understanding Chinese medicine. And this allowed me to look at the Kriyas and understand what they were actually doing in the physical body. Because typically when you would go learn Kundalini, they tell you why what the Kriya is for, but they don't tell you why it's working. And I always wanted to know why. So now I have this Chinese medicine component. I was able to look at the Kriyas and see what they were stimulating in the body, and how each Kriya works on different meridians and pathways of the body. And then I started to learn how to diagnose my own energy. And I was like, oh, that's why those Kriyas made me sick, because they had too much fire energy, or they had too much earth energy. And it was like my brain, it just all started to just make sense all together. And then from that moment, I was like, this is it. Like, this is the modernization of the Kundalini, because with my elemental makeup, waking up at 4 a.m., which is how it's traditionally taught, did not sit right with me. Practicing the Kriyas a certain way did not sit right with me. And it was a little scary to rebel from everything that's traditionally taught. But I knew what felt right. I knew what was working in my body. So I started to just create my own modernization of Kundalini, which is now called Light Leader Kundalini. And the reason why I love it so much is because of how efficient it is, how you can see results really quickly. And like you said, you're like, it's not as prevalent, or like not everyone knows it. I feel like it's my mission to wake everyone up with this stuff, because if the mainstream world could activate their Kundalini, I can't even imagine the type of earth that we would be creating together, right? So we have to make this thing that was originally so dogmatic and so restrictive, if we learn how to adapt and mold it and evolve it into something that anyone, literally anyone, can practice and feel safe within, then we're onto something really beautiful. So I created my own version of Kundalini that's focused more on a gentle way to awaken this energy, and that can be safely practiced for everyone. So it kind of cancels out those fears that many people have of like, oh my God, I saw it was dangerous. Oh my God, do I have to wear a turban? Oh my God, do I have to chant all these crazy things? I always say you can if you want, but there's another way. There's always another way. So for anyone that's listening, Kundalini is a primal energy that every single human being has that lives deep within them. Most people walk around this planet not even knowing that it's there, never even awakening it. But this energy source represents our untapped potential. And when you awaken it, it is so potent, so powerful. What this energy actually is pure divine feminine energy that has created everything that we see on this planet. So you're walking around with the ultimate creator that lives within you. So when you awaken this energy, what happens is it moves up through the base of your spine, moving up through your entire energy system. If you're familiar with the chakras, you can visualize it moving up through your chakra system. And the goal is to have it reach up at the top of your crown. And the reason for that is we need to have the duality between the masculine and the feminine. So this represents the divine feminine energy. Up at the top of the crown of your head, they say, is Shiva, which is the masculine energy. So you're awakening the creator and you're having her work through your entire energy system. And as she's doing that, she's going through a sacred purge and clearing out all the belief systems that don't serve you. And she's making her way up to your crown to meet her counterpart, Shiva, the divine masculine. So that way you have the duality and the harmony between both of these energies, which ultimately means, it doesn't mean that you're like fully enlightened and you're a god, but it means that you're walking around as a more balanced, loving human being. And what's really cool is as this energy is moving up, you guide that energy. So you tell her what you want to create. You say like, oh, I want to create the 6-figure business. Oh, I want to meet my soulmate. Oh, I want to do this. Like you do have to give an intention for it. And she's going to course through your physical body and your energetic body, guiding you to the lessons that you need to heal in order to achieve that thing that you desire. And I believe that some people might have adverse effects to this because sometimes we don't want to look at our own stuff. Sometimes we don't want to look at that lesson and we run away from it. And that's okay. So I always recommend people, like when you're practicing this, you have to be ready for your life to change, right? Because where you're at right now might be comfortable in a sense, but the fact that you're even like inquiring about Kundalini, it's attracting to you for a reason, because there's something else that you know that you want out of your life. And the way that we awaken that energy is through the use of kriyas, which are sequences of poses, postures, mantra, and breath work to receive a specific desired outcome. And the way I teach it, like I said, is through this modernization to make it really safe and gentle on the body, and recommending kriyas that are safe for your energy and for where you want to be in your life as well. Now, I know that was a long description of it all, but I hope I covered everything.
Yes, I love how you like mentioned all of this in this short time frame. You even already mentioned the masculine and the feminine energy, because I saw in the form you filled out before the interview you wanted to talk about it. So is there anything you would like to add on it?
No, I think, just one thing to just mention, like I shared, like if you're hearing about Kundalini, this is how it was for me. It was kind of like circulating, right? And when it's coming to you in your life, it's coming to you for a reason, right? Like we attract in the things that we need in our life and what's going to help us get to that next level. So if you're even inquiring about it, listen to that voice. Don't Google, right? Because Googling it's probably going to scare the crap out of you. But there is another way. If you're open to a more modern, more gentle way, I would love to support anyone that's going through that journey and wants to understand how to move this energy in a safe way. And when I say safe and gentle, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have potent results. I found that when we practice Kundalini in this way, my students actually see quicker results because we're working with the momentum of their own energy. And then we're applying the Kriya to that. So it just allows them to have exponential results. So if you're ready to move some energy, if you're ready to just make a change in your life, Kundalini has been by far, hands down, the tool that has moved the needle the most, the tool that has changed the trajectory of my life and of my business on multiple occasions. It's so powerful. And like I said, if everyone knew about this, if everyone knew how to move this energy in their body, we would see a lot more love and peace on this planet. And I think that's the ultimate goal. And I know it might not happen in my lifetime, but if we can start to share these tools now and start to spread the awareness now, it might be able to help the generations behind us and create that generational impact.
I love this. So as a final question, is there anything else you would love to share to those who are listening, or is there anything you would love to, like kind of give them, if you could just hand them over a gift?
Yes. Well, I think there's a reason why we listen to podcast episodes, and oftentimes it's because we're meant to hear a message or be reminded of something. So if there's anything that you heard during this episode that gave you that aha moment or made you think of a creative idea, or if you're waiting for the sign, like this episode was the sign. Me saying this to you is the sign that you've been waiting for. Any creative idea that maybe moved through you or a sense of clarity, trust it, act upon it. I think so many times we are in these settings where we listen to these episodes, or where, we get the divine idea and then we get home or life happens and we forget about it. So I just encourage anyone that's listening to just trust and take action. Like before that ego can step in, like the second you hit end on this podcast, go take yourself out for a walk, go grab your journal, and just have a heart storm about what it is that you're feeling right now in this moment.
Thank you very much for the amazing interview. And if people would love to connect with you, where would they reach you best?
Great question. So I have a lot of fun on Instagram. So that's at I am Brianna Rose. And if you want to learn more about my work and what it is that I teach, even if it's Kundalini or something else, inside of my private Facebook group, the Rising Light Sisterhood, I have over 100 free trainings at this point. It's a free group to join. I'm just all about creating community, tons of trainings inside that space, and you get to be in the energy of like-minded people, whether you're just starting out on your spiritual or business journey, or you've been doing this for years. You'll find a place and be supported, and it's a really powerful sisterhood.
Yeah, I can definitely say yes to this. It's always when I read something of you, I'm like, yes.
Oh, yay!
And you are honestly one of the few people I regularly read. So very high recommendation to check out all your channels. And thank you very much for the amazing interview again.
Thank you, Lisa. It's been awesome. I appreciate you.